Praise the Lord. Welcome to our Sunday school lesson for today, June 22nd, 2025. The subject is Isaac calls on the name of the Lord. And I will just insert another phrase in there. Isaac builds an altar and call on the name of the Lord. We are still in the book of Genesis, and we're still talking about sacrifices and offerings that predates the Mosaic law. And as we have said before, I'll call them the patriarchs, build an altar to worship God, to give honor and sacrifices and praise to God. And that's what the purpose of the altar was, to serve as a form of worship toward God. So Isaac builds an altar and calls on the name of the Lord. And our lesson is taken from Genesis chapter 26. Now, last week, we was introduced to Isaac, and Isaac was the promised son, or the promised seed of Abraham. Isaac was not the firstborn son of Abraham, but he was the promised seed because he was the son that was born to Abraham and Sarah. And so he was the promised son, and he was instructed by God to offer his son on the altar. And we said last week that Isaac was a young man when he was offered on the altar, and we know the story. There was a substitute for Isaac, that is, a ram was in the bush. But Abraham went through with his intentions. When God saw that his intentions was going to be carried out, and he drew back the knife. And as I said last week, faith, in order to prove faith, there has to be some action, some overt act to prove. Faith is not merely just believing. Merely believing will not change your circumstances. You have to act. The simple definition of faith that I like to use is faith is acting upon what you believe. So there has to be a substantial step or an overt act. And the overt act, that when God saw that Abraham had put his son Isaac on the altar, and he stretched back the knife to take his life, the angels stopped him. They said, don't do the son, don't do the lad any harm. So that was last week, and as I said, Isaac was introduced in that lesson. Now, the 26th chapter of Genesis focus primarily is on Isaac, the 26th chapter. And we're going to read several verses from the 26th chapter of Genesis. Our lesson is taken from Genesis 26, verses 24 through 33. We have two outlines in our lesson. The first outline is verses 24 and 25, is covenant promises. That's the first outline. And the second outline is verses 26 through 27. of Genesis. Okay, it's the 26th to the 33rd verse. I misspoke there. It's the second outline is 26 through 33 of Genesis, and his promises kept. So let's go back to our first set of scriptures, our first outline, and that is Genesis 26, 24, 25. But as I said, we're going to talk about some other things in the 26th chapter because, again, the 26th chapter of Genesis focuses primarily on Isaac. Okay, now we at the really the 26th chapter of Genesis, which that's the focus on Isaac. It's focused on Isaac, but our lesson starts. Right. Yeah, that's the first outline. Right. We on the, yeah. The subject is Isaac builds an altar and call on the name of the Lord. That's the subject. Okay, but we're gonna look at some things in the 26th chapter of Isaac because that's the focus of that chapter. Now, the first thing, Abraham, his father, and Isaac experienced it and mirrored each other. And that's what we're going to look at in the 26th chapter. And starting at verse 1 of the 26th chapter. Like I said, our lesson don't pick up until we get down to verse 24. But let's look at the very first verse of the 26th chapter of Genesis. Now, it says, there was a famine in the land beside that famine that was in the days of Abraham. So we're talking about the mirrored experiences of Isaac and his father, Abraham. Okay, now, in this chapter here, Isaac is now a mature man of faith. He's no longer the young man or the lad that was sacrificed on the altar. He's as we would say, he's now a mature man. He's not a young lad. He's not a young man. He's a mature man of faith at this point. Okay, and let's go back. Okay, there was a famine in the land beside the first famine that was in the days of Abraham.
And Isaac went unto Amalek, king of Philistines, unto Gerar.
Okay, so there was a famine in his father's time. There was a famine in the land, okay, and we're going to read that Isaac's going to be faced with the same thing. And look at verse 2.
And the Lord appeared unto him and said, go not down into Egypt. Dwell in the land which I shall tell thee of.
Okay, now, so there is a famine. There was a famine in the land during his father's time, and it said, go not down into Egypt. Now, in chapter 12 and verse 1 of Genesis, it tells you that when the famine was in the land, during Abraham's time, Abraham went to Egypt during the famine. And this is the highlights in our lesson is about faith, obedience, and God's providence. Now, the Lord is telling Isaac, don't go down in the land of Egypt to avoid the famine like your father did. And you'll find that in Genesis 12 and 1, where his father, that is Abraham, went to Egypt during the famine time. So we talk about the experiences that were similar. The famine in Abraham's time, Abraham went to Egypt. Famine during Isaac's time, the Lord is telling him in verse 2, don't go down in Egypt. Dwell in the land where I shall tell you. Okay. And 3, let's read 3.
sojourn in this land, and I will be with thee, and will bless thee. For unto thee and unto thy seed I will give all these countries, and I will perform the oath which I swear unto Abraham thy father.
Okay, go ahead and read 4. Because
And I will make thy seed to multiply as the stars of the heaven, and will give unto thy seed all these countries, and in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed.
okay, now we see there in 3 and 4, we see the same promise. This is the very same promise that the Lord made to who? Abraham, his father. So we see here, and that's what the first outline is said, God's promises, right?
Yeah.
That's the first outline. That's what we're talking about. God's promises. So the Lord is restating the very same promise that he made to his father Abraham. Okay? It's like the promise restated. Okay? And he's telling him, stay in the land. So basically, this is what it's about. Okay, obedience to God is going to bring blessings.
Yes.
That's really that's one of the essence of this lesson. Obedience to God, and we're going to see he's going to be obedient, and he's going to be blessed. Obedience to God brings blessing. I mean, and obviously the opposite would be true. Disobedience is going to bring curses. It's not going to bring blessing. Because if obedience is going to bring blessing and disobedience is going to bring blessing, well, whatever, do whatever. But obedience is going to bring blessings. So the Lord is telling him, just like the famine in your father's time, he went to Egypt, stay in the land, and I will bless you. Stay there. Stay where you are, and I will bless you. And he's making the same promise. And verse 2, which you read, the Lord appeared unto him. In this chapter here, 26, the Lord is going to appear unto Isaac twice. Okay, this is the first time. Then verse 2 said the Lord appeared unto him. So this is the first time. And each time he's going to repeat the same promise. We're going to get to that. He appeared unto Isaac and repeated the same promise, or restated the promise that he made to his father. And so, just as his father, Abraham, was obedient, that brought blessing. So he's telling him, and we're going to see, obedience to God brings blessing. Okay, that was verse 3 and 4 is what was the promise stated. So, verse 5.
Because that Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws, and Isaac dwelt in Gerar.
Okay, so what do we see here? Just like your father obeyed, okay, my commands and laws, and he was blessed, I want you to obey, and you can be blessed. And he what? He stayed, he dwelt in Gerar. He stayed.
Yeah.
So he was obedient to the Lord. Now, that was the first similarity. The famine, just like in his father's day, and he obeyed the Lord. Now, the second similarity is in verse 7. And I'll tell you that, and we're going to read it. Okay.
And the men of the place asked him of his wife, and he said, she is my sister. For he feared to say, she is my wife, lest, said he, the men of the place should kill me for Rebekah, because she was fair to look on.
Okay, now, you remember Abraham lied about Sarah being his wife. Very same thing. Now, and you see, Abraham with Sarah and Rebekah was beautiful.
Yeah.
So, in other words, they both had beautiful wives, and they both lied about their wife being their sister. So, do you see the mirrored experiences?
Yes.
They both basically told the same lie, if you want to put it that way, about their wife was their sister. Abraham did the same thing about Sarah because she was beautiful, and we see Isaac. He married Rebekah. He did the same thing. Told the king Abimelech that, oh, that's my sister. And then, okay, and you jump down and 8 and just touch on that a little bit. Just a little.
And it came to pass when he had been there a long time that Abimelech, king of the Philistines, looked out at a window and saw, and behold, Isaac was sporting with Rebekah, his wife.
Go and read that 9.
And Abimelech called Isaac and said, behold, of a surety she is thy wife, and how sayest thou, she is my sister?
Now, in other words, man, you lied to me. He saw her sporting. In other words, you ain't gonna be playing with your wife, your sister like that. He said, that's your wife, man. That's your wife. And so we see this. We see the same thing. That's the other similarity. Now we go to verse 11 and 12 and 13.
And want me to read it?
Yeah, go read those.
And Abimelech charged all his people, saying, he that toucheth this man or his wife shall surely be put to death. Then Isaac sowed in that land and received in the same year an hundredfold, and the Lord blessed him.
Okay, it was 12 and 13. We really want. 11 is okay, but 12 and 13. Okay.
And the man
Did you read those yet?
No, I didn't read 13 yet.
Okay, read 13.
And the man waxed great and went forward and grew until he became very great.
Okay, so this is about faith brings obedience. Faith and obedience brings blessing. Okay, so Isaac was blessed greatly. Isaac became rich. That's what it said. Very great. He was blessed not tenfold, not 30-fold, 100-fold. Okay, and the Lord blessed him. That's what it says right there. The Lord blessed him. He waxed great. He went forward, and this get 14 possession and flock and all of in a herd, and really 14. Read the last part of 14 especially.
And great store of servants, and the Philistines envied him.
Okay, the Lord blessed him to the point that the people in the land of they was jealous. They envied him. Okay, and they were threatening to well, you get out of here. We kicking him out. So that was the myriad experiences. But the Lord blessed him greatly. The Lord he was blessed because of his obedience to God. And we're not going to read a lot of the intervening verses. But I'm just going to talk about it. Okay, and so what happened? The wells, they were sabotaging the wells, and all the way down from 15 to 22. They were sabotaging the well. They built one well. There's a dispute over the well, over the water. Now, because he had, you see the importance of the water. He had all of these, he grew crops and he had livestock. Water was essential. Water was a necessary commodity. And at each time, he built a well. All the way from 15 to 22 is disputing over well or water, right? That's a big thing. I remember in a city in Michigan, there was an issue with water. So water is very important, even today for cooking, drinking, things of that sort. But it was very important even then because of the crops and because of livestock, and we read it. He had a lot of possession of flock, herd, all of these things, and water was very essential. So the dispute over the wells was major. And verse 22, after so much disputing over the water, you dig one well, and there was a dispute over that. The neighborhood sabotaged it. And then verse 22.
And he removed from thence and digged another well, and for that they strove not. He called the name of it Rehoboth. And he said, For now the Lord hath made room for us, and we shall be fruitful in the land. Okay,
so basically, after all of these disputes, they built one well, there's a dispute, and the neighborhood, the neighbors sabotaged that, and now this last well here, this well, there was no dispute and over that place. Now, this is where our lesson takes up, and it said the Lord appeared unto him again. Now, this again is the second time. We read the first time. Didn't we read the first time that the Lord appeared to him? And verse 2, and the promise, right?
Yes.
The same promise. Now, this is the second time that the Lord appeared in this chapter, appeared unto Isaac. Okay, the same night. Let's read that 20. Actually, it's 24 and 25, right? It's 20.
24.
Okay.
Yes, it's 24 and 25.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. And the Lord appeared unto him the same night and said, I am the God of Abraham thy father. Fear not, for I am with thee, and will bless thee, and multiply thy seed, and for my servant Abraham's sake.
Okay, so that is the second time in that the same promise that he made. So the promise that the Lord made to Abraham was a multi-generational promise. It was not just to Abraham. It was to Abraham and his descendants. Right. So the promise again is restated to Isaac, which was the promised seed. Remember? Right. Isaac was the promised seed. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Jacob's name was changed from Jacob to Israel. Okay, that's where we get the Israelites, the Jews, okay? They came from that line, okay? Also Jesus, okay? So it's not a promise just made to Abraham, and after Abraham, it cuts off. The promise is a multi-generational promise to Abraham and his descendants. And we know clearly that Isaac was a descendant of Abraham. So again, the same promise, just as I was stood by Abraham, okay, I'm going to stand by you. I am the God of Abraham, your father. And he said, I will multiply thy seed of my servant Abraham for Abraham's sake. So it was because of Abraham's faithfulness. It's just like if you go to a bank or whatever, and they say, well, on behalf of your father, I'm going to extend this loan to you. It's for your father's sake. But for your father's sake, because of Abraham's faithfulness, it stated right there, I will multiply thy seed, thy seed for my servant Abraham's sake. Because of your father's faithfulness, I will multiply thy seed. Because of the faithfulness of Abraham, that is your father, I will multiply thy seed. Again, the same promise restated. And now, and this is where we get into verse 25.
And he built an altar there and called upon the name of the Lord and pitched his tent there. And there Isaac's servants digged a well.
Okay, now that starts our lesson. And that's why the subject says Isaac calls on the name of the Lord. And that's why I changed it, said Isaac builds an altar and calls on the name of the Lord. Because Isaac worshiped the Lord. That's the purpose of building the altar, is to worship God. It's not just Isaac calls on the name of the Lord. Well, why are you calling on the name of the Lord? In other words, because the Lord has extended the promise to him, and he builds an altar. That's why Isaac builds an altar to worship God, and Isaac builds an altar and calls on the name of the Lord. That's why I changed the subject to Isaac builds an altar and call on the name of the Lord. Okay. Now, the next, okay, you read 20.
Read 25.
Yeah, okay. That's takes us through the first outline. Okay, so the altar is to worship God for his blessing and his faithfulness. God is faithful. Basically,
Yes.
just like he's faithful to, just like I was faithful to your father Abraham, I'm going to be faithful to me. But it's his own obedience, though. Just like he told Abraham, and Abraham followed, he told Isaac, sojourn, stay in the land and be obedient, and I'm going to bless you. And we just read how he was blessed to the point that the Philistines envied him. Now, and there's another point I just thought about a minute ago. The Lord will bless you in the midst of your enemies. Now, they were sabotaging well after well. I mean, and the Lord was blessing him. The Lord can bless you in the midst of your enemies. And that's what it's talking about here. They envied him. They hated him. But what can you do? I mean, it's like, okay, well, look at him. He's doing all this stuff. He's doing all that stuff. And the Lord is blessing. We just read it again. We read it. And verse 12, the Lord blessed him. It didn't say, it just said the Lord blessed him. Well, I don't like him. The Lord bless him. Who can dispute that? Right. The Lord is blessing you. And the neighbors was envious of him. The neighbors was jealous of him. But the Lord was blessing him. The Lord was blessed because of his obedience. So that's the point to us. Well, I've heard people testify and say, well, I went to ask a person a favor, and I knew they didn't like me, and blah blah blah, and they do it, and the person scratched their head and said, why did I do that? It's because of the Lord, and they like, I didn't even like them. That's the Lord blessing in the midst of your enemy. So that's what the Lord did. The Lord blessed him. While his enemies was envious, was mad, jealous, wanted to kick him out, but what could they do? Nothing. Because the Lord was blessing him. The Lord was blessing him. And so there you go, because of his obedience. Because of his obedience. So don't worry about your distractors, your haters, as they call them today, haters. You're probably going to have haters. Don't worry about your haters. Well, I got haters. Don't worry about that. Just do what God says, and he bless you in the midst. I think there's a song, scripture talking about he will bless you in the midst of your enemies. Your enemies all around, and he will bless you in the midst of your enemies. And that's what the Lord did to Isaac, for Isaac, because he was obedient and faithful. And that's the key. One key from this lesson, he was blessed because of his faithfulness and obedience. Now the second outline is promises kept. Okay, now the king, this was the king of Gerar, Abimelech, and 26 and 27, what that say? 26 and 27.
Then Abimelech went to him from Gerar and Huzath, one of his friends, and Phicol, the chief captain of his army. And Isaac said unto them, Wherefore come ye to me, seeing ye hate me, and have sent me away from you?
Okay, now here, and it's a question, right? It's a question mark there, right? In other words, you hate me. Why? And you want to kick me out. Why are you coming to me now? That's a legitimate question. That's a legitimate question. Now, I mean, you say your enemy is coming, okay? Why are you coming to me now? Why? I mean, that's a real legitimate question. You hate me, and it says, see, you want to send me away? Why are you coming to me now? Why are you coming? I mean, and it's gonna give the answer in 28. And just read 28.
And they said, We saw certainly that the Lord was with thee. And we said, Let there be now an oath betwixt us, even betwixt us and thee, and let us make a covenant with thee.
Okay, that's the answer. We see the Lord blessing you. I mean, that's a good answer. I mean, that's a true answer too. Okay, and we read it. The Lord blessed him greatly in the midst of his enemies. They were sabotaging well after well after well after well. As I say, water was essential. He needed water because he had livestock, he had crops. He needed water. He needed water. Once he find water, what do? And it's through 15 and 20. What do? They stop up the well. They stop up the well. They sabotage the well. He had to go dig another well. And once, and like in 22 we read, where he found a well and there was no contention about that well. Okay? So, and 28, which 27, he said, why are you coming to me now? Why are you coming to me now? Basically, ask me for a favor now. And they said, they was honest in 28 and said, we certainly see that the Lord is blessing you. I mean, that's the whole thing. I mean, if I'm making money in the stock market, and I'm investing in a certain stock, you say, man, he's like put in $100,000. Now he's got $1 million. I mean, what's your secret? I mean, what's your secret? I mean, they want to know. They want in on it, basically. They want in on it. And they was honest. We certainly see that the Lord is with thee. Let us form an alliance now, okay? And as I said, Isaac that was an honest question. Why are you coming to me now? They gave me an honest answer because the Lord is blessing you. The Lord is with you. We see that. We ain't blind. We ain't blind and stupid. We see that the Lord is blessing you. And now, 27, well, that's part of the oath. And, 29, you're at 27. 29 is part of the oath. That they want to make the oath, a covenant between them. Go ahead.
That thou wilt do us no hurt, as we have not touched thee, and as we have done unto thee nothing but good, and have sent thee away in peace. Thou art now the blessed of the Lord.
Okay, so they said, well, I guess the idea, we just wanted to send you away. We didn't rough you up that much, but I mean, the point is they was honest. They saw that Isaac, God, the God that Isaac served, was the source of his blessing. We want to be a part of that. We want to tap into that. And we're going to see in verse 30 is that the deal is sealed. Isaac, they seals the deal.
And he made them a feast, and they did eat and drink.
Okay, so the idea is the subject is of the lesson is of the second outline is promises kept. But in other words, they were reconciled. There was some reconciliation, okay? They, Isaac agreed, and that was the point of they made a feast and they did eat. In other words, they sealed the deal. And it was because, like I said, but the key points from this lesson is about faith, obedience, and God's promises, God's provision. So if you are faithful to God, he's going to be faithful to you. Just like your father Abraham was faithful, if you be faithful and obedient, you will be blessed. And that's the same thing today. Blessings follow faith and obedience. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's a scripture says that obedience is better than sacrifice.
Right. So that's what follows. I mean, obedience. And we see God is faithful. You see the faithfulness of God. God is going to hold up his end of the bargain. That's a surety. That's a surety. You don't have to worry about God. God is going to be faithful on his end of the bargain. And the Lord was faithful to his father Abraham and faithful to Isaac. Okay, so in verse 30 and 31.
31.
Yeah, 30 and 31.
I read 30, Deacon.
31, 32.
And they rose up betimes in the morning and sware one to another. And Isaac sent them away, and they departed from him in peace.
Okay, that's the sealing of the deal. 30 and 31 is the sealing of the deal. The feast to seal that deal. The conflict was resolved. That's basically that. Now 31 is God's provision. It says divine provision, the providence of God.
32.
Yeah, 32.
And it came to pass the same day that Isaac's servants came and told him concerning the well which they had digged, and said unto him, We have found water.
Okay, that's we'll cover 33 later. But the point is that God's provision, God will provide. If you're faithful, God is faithful. Faith towards God and obedience. As Isaac was obedient, just as his father was obedient, and he was blessed. So obedience will bring God's provision. God provided. He said, we have found water. That's very key. We have found water. That was what the dispute was about. Wasn't it about water? They needed water. We have found water. God will provide, just like with the father Abraham. And what did he say? When Isaac, who was then a young man, asked his father the question, I see the wood, I see the altar, but where is the sacrifice? And what did Abraham say? God will provide. And we see here, if you are faithful, Abraham was faithful. He was obedient to God, and God provided a sacrifice. Here, water was essential. Water was necessary. And they said in 32, we digged the well, which had been dug, and he said, that's the key. We have found water. And God, in other words, God have sent divine provision, the divine providence of God. The providence of God is what? God will provide. God got everything. It's like whatever we need is in God. But is I call them, there is a condition precedent. There's a condition preceding. In other words, there's a condition that you have to meet first before God obligation kicks in. It's obedience, then blessing. It's not blessing and obedience. I mean, it's like even if you get a loan, you have to promise first that and show first that you have the ability to pay this loan back before they give it to you. Is that true? If you go for a mortgage and you want to buy a $300,000 house, I believe, I might be wrong, you have to prove that you credit worthy, that you can afford to pay this loan back before they give it to you. Amen. Isn't that generally the way it works?
Amen.
You have to prove, show your income, your net worth to say, I can pay this loan back. Okay, we're going to give you the loan. They don't give you the loan, and now prove. So before you can be blessed, you have to. It has to be some proof that you can do this. So there was obedience, and then there is the blessing. Obedience is like a. There's some action there. There has to be some action there, right? Isaac had to stay in the land. That's what he told him. He said, remain in Gerar. Don't go to Egypt like your father. And you remain there, I'll bless you. If Isaac had said, no, I'm going to Egypt to avoid the famine. I told you to stay in the land, and you didn't do that. You was not obedient. So his action was to remain in the land. It said he remained in Gerar. He was obedient. Yes. So if you obedient, you have to do something or refrain from doing something. If I call one of the brothers, I said, would you come up here for a second? If they're obedient, they will come. If they're not, that's an action. They either stay in their seat, non-act, or either they come. So it's an act. You can't be, I'm going to be obedient. It's just like a child. Say, well, I'm going to be obedient, and I ain't going to go out. And they go out. They're not obedient. So obedience, blessings follows obedience. And verse 33, we found water. And verse 33.
And he called it Sheba. Therefore, the name of the city is Beersheba unto this day.
Okay, so the key here is to the blessing is you need to be where the Lord wants you to be and in his will. And if you are where the Lord wants you to be and in the will of the Lord, you will find protection and power, and you will find the blessings of the Lord. Okay? So God provided Isaac with water, which was the divine providence of God, what was needed for him to prosper. And that's all it is to this lesson, is that faith and obedience will bring the blessings of God. Faith and obedience to God's word. And that's our lesson. Isaac builds an altar and calls on the name of the Lord. And we'd like to thank you for watching today, and we ask you to join us next week for our Sunday school lesson. Thank you.